And we are back, Art Pandas. Hopefully you see the drawing surface nicely and well lit. Let me check once again. Do we see it well? Well, I suppose this will do. Hello everyone. This is the ruled A4 paper with the size of an actual printed comic book here for the cover. And we have the bleed area here that I have decided, plus a division, I hope it is seen here, roughly a third of this drawing space is going to be for a title. Now, am I going to improvise from my busy fertile mind and do this, or did I prepare for this task? I have to admit, yes, I prepared. Here is the sketch that I have done before starting this demonstration. How would I do the cover for a comic? As you can see, I have a pose for JETTRESS and also suggestion of a huge sun behind the silhouette of a cityscape. And since we are talking photos, we have a blimp, or Zeppelin as it was called, and without any reference, just a notion of several biplanes in the background. So, without any further ado, let's start. I'm using a blue pencil for the initial rough. So here is the ground JETTRESS is going to stand on, and her figure is going to be here. I'll put her a little bit to the right and begin by sketching her torso, because some of you might remember I have this theory of mine that starting with the head, as is academic rule of thumb, it's good, but sometimes it's better if you start with something larger like torso. Why? Well, I gather it's easier to decide how something is larger from something smaller than how something smaller is comparing to something bigger. As you can see, I approach torso with this notion I have picked up from animation, from Milk Cow, about constant shapes and areas of certain changes. In this case, area of certain changes is going to be the waist of JETTRESS, and here we have this angle of her collarbones, and this is going to be the angle of her hips. Therefore, I'm sketching her leg she's resting on. I'm not bothering with anatomy at the moment, just the general shapes that are going to define the very look of her pose in this particular case. She is powerful, she has the most powerful, the mightiest superpower of them all, her mind. She is a scientist, and she is the inventor of this jetpack that is going to be on her back. Let me check. Oh yeah, it is. It reads quite nicely under the camera lens. So this is her head. Direction her face is looking, her forehead and her face. So now I'm adding this partly obscured arm and quite feminine pose for her hand. As you can see, if we consult the previous sketch, I have drawn a very feminine position of her left arm to your right, and here I'm going to add this raised arm that's just slightly going to enter the area of the logo of the title, and presumably we are going to have an avatar here. Now let's get something straight. I'm not drawing the real size. If I was drawing for print, I would be drawing on a paper which is A3 size, and this would be much larger. In this case, after I finish the rough sketch, I would most probably take it to photocopier shop and enlarge it. So on my trusty light table, I would do a cleanup, and that would be the preparation for the final execution. But here I'm doing it all on A4 because for now Mr. James Lee and me have decided that this is going to be a digital comic for internet presentation only. So we add her shoulder here, and of course we are talking about 40s and the time when women really used to look womanly. There she is. Now I have the pose established, and I can proceed with finding a way. How on earth can I make this bottom area of a paper better lit? If there is anyone watching this at the moment, I would be more than grateful for any suggestion regarding the matter. I don't seem to have problem with this sketch, but now with this live sketch I'm doing something wrong with light. Anyway, let's proceed with further embellishment. I'm going to add now anatomy details and her nicely buffed legs. she is strong in her mind, but also with her body. And her mission, why she does what she does in stories, and last but not least, why most of the public considers her an enemy, will be explained thoroughly when the time is right. In the first episode, we are going to see what she does and how she does. And at some later stage, probably quite soon after the first episode, Mr. James Lee and I are going to do a story that is going to explain how JETTRESS became what she is and why she does it. Because, like all good characters, she has the motive. It is not just, oh, I can do this and that, so I'm going to use my powers to help the forces of law, etc. It's going to be much, much, much more complicated with our Jetty. What is her uniform? Well, to tell you bluntly, her uniform is a nice jacket with jetpack attached behind, and that's it. The rest is underwear, lingerie. Our Jetty is quite sexy looking lady. There is the holster for her infamous gun, which is not an ordinary firearm at all. No, sir. And we are going to address that problem, you guessed it, at a later stage. I remember saying to James when we were discussing the look, I'm not going to make her belt like a utility belt, like a certain flying rodent in comics does. And guess what? Look what I'm drawing. One of the things that you might have noticed when I was showing you previous sketches, like this one, is she has a proper jacket with long sleeves. But for reasons very logical, James decided to have her in short sleeves, so we can see not only her nicely defined muscular legs, but also her more than nicely muscular arms. So I'm going to draw it here. She has gloves, kid gloves. And this is under her armpits. And now comes the tricky part. She has some kind of fur here, fur collar, which is slightly visible underneath. Now we have this stunt pilot uniform of sorts, this leather jacket, and we have this nice sexy bra. Let's see how it reads under the camera. All right. Nicholas John Pojega asks the question. Hi Nicholas, thanks for joining in. He asks, how long does it typically take you to draw a professional comic? Well, it depends on too many things. Number of panels required per page, then the amount of details required. For instance, drawing somebody elaborately equipped as our JETTRESS, it takes much longer than drawing someone like I don't know, Silver Surfer. I don't want to say that it is an easy peasy task drawing Silver Surfer, mind you, but it's the character without too many details or elaborate rendering required. You see, I think that also demands for background create the problem. If there is a lot of backgrounds to be done, sometimes it takes really hours and hours. I remember one ninja comic I drew several years ago. In one scene, ninja is approaching through the forest this Japanese beautiful castle. I referenced it. I found magazines with Japanese architecture, and I remember the single panel at the bottom of the page where he sees that castle. It took me 9 hours to draw that panel, Nicholas. 9 hours, because of all these elaborate details on the castle, and the rest happening in the darkness, and ninja snaking his way through the bushes and between the trees. It was an easy ride. It was a couple of hours, 3 hours maybe. So it really depends on demands. That's what I would say. Nicholas pitches in with another opinion. I imagine any Marvel character is hard to draw. You not only have to know anatomy in and out to draw them well, but you have to exaggerate the anatomy as well. Well, the same goes for DC Comics or any other company publishing comics. I mean, Archie and the gang also have their demands, although they appear very simple to untrained or unprofessional mind. You see, the problem is people who don't draw, they have a tendency to assume that drawing is easy, you know. They really think that it is something that we just sit down and knock out and that's it, and things just happen. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Sometimes it appears to be forever, you know. It takes too long, and it tends to be frustrating, and in most cases people in their right mind tend to ask the question, why on earth am I doing this with so many other lucrative professions, and I'm wasting my time drawing this and that. Well, this is something that only people who love to do this kind of job, they do it. Otherwise, I don't know why bother. Comics don't tend to be what they used to be. They used to be more popular, more important in print, and nowadays comics are more important as properties for licensing, especially the big companies that have their characters turned into attractive movies, you know. This hand is not good at all, but that's roughly the position I would like this hand to be, so I'm going to sort it out later. Nicholas again, he says, oh, it is not. I tell people how hard it is all the time whenever I'm asked. Yes, Nicholas, that's a heroic job you are doing, same as I, but in most cases people don't care. Seriously. I remember a long time ago when the movie Daredevil was still fresh and popular. I was at some kind of a convention and there was this girl that asked me, oh, would you do Daredevil for me? And it was in Serbia, and mind you, in Serbia originals and the sketches do not have the value they have in the West, especially in America, so I was doing it for free. So I said, oh yeah, no problem, I'll draw you Daredevil. And I started to draw it, and suddenly some girls and boys appeared, and she just went, and I said, hey, what about Daredevil? Where are you going? And she just waved her hand like this, like, get off, and she disappeared. Well, I ran after her, and I shoved into her hands unfinished drawing, and I said, listen, I wasted almost an hour of my time drawing this for you, so you take it. The very next thing she did, she threw it away and just went away. So people, to tell you honestly, they don't care. They don't care. Okay, what do we have behind as a very prominent element? We have this Son of Swords, and I could use my compass, but I find it more interesting if I use the saucepan. The saucepan is nice and large, and it's going to give this really huge, impressive background, especially if it is colored, so we can play with colors for this one. Oh no, Nicholas, I don't think people need to be more passionate about art, because people are passionate only about what interests them, and this doesn't interest people. All these audiences flocking to see these Marvel or DC live action movies, most of them even have no idea whatsoever that such properties and characters actually originated in comics. No way. They just kind of accept them as anything else. Do you really think that all those fans of Matt Damon and Bourne Identity, that they really care to read the books? No way, mate. No way. All right. Our Jetty, as I like to call her, has stockings, very elaborate fishnet stockings that I'm going to draw later. But now we need to define her hairstyle, which I didn't quite pick up from a reference photo, mind you, so I improvised with something that is supposed to be a semblance of what our grannies used to wear or like in the old days. You see, Nicholas, it's sometimes so difficult to accept the simple fact that what was so fashionable recently, like for instance in the 90s, is already old days. I hear criticism about certain artists, you know, criticism that says something along the lines, oh, his art looks so retro, so old-fashioned, oh, it is so 90s. For God's sake, and it appears like it was this morning, not yesterday, and it is already old stuff. I like modern times because, frankly, we can't say anything goes, but we have this situation that there is no prevalent school of drawing. I'm not thinking about any particular style or school for this. I'm thinking about solid drawing and how I'm going to do amends on these hands at the later stage. Right now I need to draw her backpack that is going to be partly visible here, just partly. And for this thing in particular I need to use my ruler. Why? This is not going to be exactly perspective, mind you, but this is going to be a grid that I need for these wings behind her, with jets on each end. And stuff like this takes time. I don't doubt there are artists who can do it freehand. I mean, I could do it freehand, but then again, I want to show what my drafting desk has here. So here we are going to add this and this and this and this. I won't bother erasing these blue lines from the grid because it is all going to be killed off in Photoshop when I'm going to just delete all the blues. This grid that I'm now sketching has nothing to do with actual perspective of the whole scene. I'm just doing this so I have reassurance where I'm going to place those wings. So if we have her jetpack here, which finishes somewhere like here, so I assume her wings are going like this, and like this. Here we have those jets. Now the right hand side wing like this. Yep, that's it. And the jet going like this. I'll see later if I'm going to show the beginning of, you know, this blast coming out of Jet, and adding all the details later. Of course, for the background, where we are going to have the cityscape in silhouette, which is not going to be black, this is going to be in color, so I'm going to use some darker hue. To put the proper silhouette, I will have to draw a new grid, so maybe I will need to erase this right here, drawn for the flying contraption. So let's start noodling further with her jacket. How do you call this? Flips? And the rest is hidden by her body. All right. Now, her face. I'll see if I can bend down a little bit camera, so her face is going to be somewhat closer. I don't think that I managed to do it. Oh, Mr. James Lee is here, and he says, oh, I think I'm watching you live. Interesting. Yes, James. Yes, you are watching me live, and I'm drawing our JETTRESS. And if you missed it, I just showed our viewers the rough sketch I did before I began drawing this cover. So I did this rough with cityscape, in front of which is our JETTRESS. I didn't bother drawing her gear here, like I'm drawing now. And I just drew some biplanes and the blimp in the background to suggest the time frame, right? And that's it. So we said JETTRESS face. I'm going to draw now her domino mask, and first I'll draw the inner openings, you see, like this, and then on top of that the rest of the mask. So now we have her eyes. I wanted to avoid, you know, it is kind of how would I call it, cliche, you know, drawing mask that looks like this. And then we have blank eyes, nothing inside, or God forbid, like in the old days when they used to draw dots like this. Yeesh, we don't want it. And I have decided, with the approval of James, to draw her eyes totally visible with wide openings on the mask. And the mask is not going to be black, just a darker hue, so her eyebrows are going to be visible, because we decided to have JETTRESS with very animated face. Okay, I'm using my trusty kneaded eraser, or putty rubber as they call it in England. So now I'm going to put some details on her hand pointing upward. Her thumb should be a little bit larger. I'm going like this. The palm of her hand. And now we have the next finger like this. We have my friend Sabahudin Muranovic, Muran, insanely talented and phenomenal artist watching. Hvala Murane što si tu, pozdrav. I just gave a welcome to Muran in our mother tongue. So there are, of course, details on this. When I draw these rings, I always make moves like this. These lines are hugging the object around. I don't want to flatten this object, and I don't want to appear a fool who forgot how the contraption looks like. And yes, I did forget it, so I have to consult my sketchbook and check out how I drew it before. All right. And I forgot to draw this. The propulsion opening, which goes like this. Oh, by the way, Nicholas and the rest of you, when I finish rough in blue pencil, in blue lead, I'm going to use the graphite pencil to tighten it all. As a matter of fact, I might start doing it now, because we don't want to waste too much time. Sometimes, I don't know, I feel so self-assured, and I can draw everything just like that. But right now, I'm not sure. I think I will need to check out anatomy atlas of sorts, because I don't feel self-confident at the moment to draw without checking out how anatomy works. Many people think that using the color pencil for the underdrawing, that it comes from animation. But you will be surprised, that's not the case. Actually, old masters, the giants of painting art from the old days, they used colored crayons of sorts, you know, and they were the ones who invented that technique with further tightening in some kind of graphite or whatever. So animators actually stole it from old masters. I think I saw it in one book about the art of Disney. Pay attention, please, to the position of her belt buckle, and also pay attention to the fact that her pelvis is facing us whilst her upper part of the torso is going a little bit to the side. You see the middle line of her body going like this. Almost this action line makes an S shape, which is suggesting the twisting. You see, to avoid the passive non-dynamic pose, I didn't want to draw her like this, you see, like a plank. So she is kind of twisting, you see, twisting like this. And that's very important when you are thinking about positions that are not necessarily action moving poses. It's very important to think about the impact this figure is going to have. So there we finish her belt like this. And of course, let's finish the sexy stuff. Nice black stripe here. Nicola John Pozega again. What did some of the artists you've learned from have to say about exaggerating anatomy? I'm curious. Well, I spoke to several of really fantastic artists we all admire, and their advice was don't go too much into exaggeration. Don't go crazy, otherwise it is going to really appear idiotic, you know. I am very impressed with some artists who are still using this method. I'm going to repeat the JETTRESS pose here. You see what I'm doing? I'm doing a suggestion of a skeletal figure. When you do this, it is much easier to to dress up this figure first anatomically. You see, you don't need to draw a medical skeleton. What you need is just to suggest that there is a wire frame underneath. When you say wire frame, some kind of skeleton that needs later to be properly addressed with position of muscles and so on, etc., etc., or clothes. I envy artists like Kim Jung-gi who are capable to take brush or marker, you know, without any preliminary sketch. They immediately go into finished drawing, and I seriously think that they have hidden projectors behind their eyes doing this this thing with this finish. I can't understand how they do it. I really can't. But I presume, since Kim Jung-gi says anyone can do it, it all depends, I reckon, on a lot of practice, you know? Because practice in drawing differs from musical practice. You are not doing something repeatedly so you learn which moves to make. No, 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 forget it. In drawing, as in painting, you need to be aware of things that you convey, and the practice is to remember the structure and construction, not to repeat already learned moves. You know, drawing is not choreography. Drawing is something very, very individual, like handwriting that is individual. So now I realized that this finger was too long when I drew it in blue pencil, so I'm shortening it right now and doing correction as I go. Because she wears gloves, I can draw these details like this, and I think I managed to do a decent hand. Not in this standard position pointing up, but rather in a relaxed manner. Oh, you know, so let's try to also finish this hand here. Maybe you have noticed, maybe you didn't, I make these angular, kind of angular strokes because my natural way of drawing is not a roundish. So that, for instance, makes my way of drawing different from, let's say, Muran, our friend who watches this. He has very round way of establishing shapes. Lines are not important. What is important are shapes we define with lines. So line is not the means, it is not the goal, it is No, line is not the goal. It is the means to achieve the goal of establishing proper shapes that we put in certain relationship. Hope it makes sense what I'm saying. Do you notice these stains here, the graphite stains, and here? In spite of using this piece of card that I put under my drawing hand to avoid with moisture from my palm, smudging the lines, still I have these smudges, and it really sometimes drives me totally insane. But what can be done? We'll deal with it later, because we got rubbers. Erasers. I hope my friend and creative partner in this particular case, James, is happy with how muscular are the legs of our jetty, because it's a tricky thing to communicate at the same time this power, mascularity, not masculinity, mascularity and yet femininity. I think I'm getting there. I think I managed to achieve that kind of desired quality. Wow. Now, her bra, because you see, we are dealing with a boobage here, a lot of boobage, I have to admit. Therefore, her uniform, pardon the expression and description, her uniform can't contain them properly. Does it bother us? No way. No way, Jose. Or no way, Pedro. We did something wrong here. I'm not sure what, but definitely we did something wrong here. Let me check out. What is it? Aha. And now it makes kind of more sense. Let me check on camera how it reads. Well, not too bad. And for a time being, let me wrap this up with defining our JETTRESS face. See, her nose is partly visible from below. These are her eyes. It's so tricky drawing female eyes and making them look nice and credible. Without, of course, turning our heroine into a plastic doll. It reads nicely. I toyed with the idea of drawing JETTRESS a little bit with these Teutonic, harsh, straight facial, chiseled features. But I gave up on that idea, and I'm going to stick to this more feminine, roundish kind of quality. You see the mask? If it was black, we would sacrifice very important aspect of JETTRESS eyebrows moves, because it contributes a lot to the psychological aspect of her. That's why in the final version we're going to use Photoshop to add some kind of darker hue for her mask. Her collarbones, very important thing. And how neck muscles fall and connect here. Her hair, which is going to be jet black. She's raven-haired. I don't know whether this is practical or not, but I gave her these earrings. We have my friend Pavle Bogojević who has joined in. Zdravo Pavle, hvala što si tu. So, I think with this demonstration of blue penciling and graphite definition of that sketch, we have done justice to this initial this initial layout of the cover proposal. And I'm going to say thank you. You were great as always. Thank you for joining in. I'm going to continue drawing this after I have talk with James, and I'm sure he will have things to tell me after this little broadcast is finished. So see you some next time. Who knows, maybe for the inking demonstration of this. And I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for joining in. Be good, stay healthy. Don't let anyone make you feel afraid. And take care. Bojan signing off. Ciao.